Okay, live. Hello, welcome. This is the first meeting of the Shareholder Committee for Dorset Innovation Park. Welcome. And so can I remind you, obviously devices switched off or on silent. When you speak for the first time, tell us who you are. We're all, I think, I won't do roundtable introductions. I think most of us know who we are anyway. But for the benefit of the audience online, mention who you are. And just a note, so Councillor Ben Wilson, who can't be here today, he's replacing Claire Sutton on the committee, and I'm allowed to do that. And I didn't want to be on. It's not a good fit for her. So that's where we are. So apologies.
Lindsay Watson, Democratic and Governance Services. Apologies from Councillor Ben Wilson. And just to note that Councillor Simon Clifford is joining us online today.
Okay. There were minutes for the meeting, but many of us, well, Kevin wasn't in part of that. But any matter of bureaucracy arising for that? Nope. Okay, I'll sign them later. Item 3, declarations of interest. Declarations. Nope. Item 4, public participation. We have no questions received from the public. Item 5, councillor questions. No questions from councillors. Item 6, forward plan. That's in the agenda pack. Anything anybody wants to raise on forward plan? It's fairly empty at the moment, as you can imagine. Okay, fine. So number 7, introduction of managing director and chair. So welcome to meeting room 1 in County Hall. Can you introduce yourself, Kevin?
Yeah, sure. So Kevin Forshaw, start of week 5 as managing director, Dorset Innovation Park. Do you want background or just stop there?
You can stop there, or do you?
Okay, no, that's fine.
Yeah, David.
So Dave Happy, chair, 40 years in telecoms and with connections in Dorset, and awarded an MBE for services to telecoms and tech October last year.
Well, congratulations. Okay, so we'll move on to item 8, which is a vision discussion presented by Kevin.
Okay, thank you very much. So I put some slides together. The first slides we probably won't need because they provide some of the background and context to the park that was shown previously. So if we go through the next few slides, so we won't cover those. Keep going. Right, I think if we stop at the last one. So I think where we've got to is we've decided for the reasons of efficiency and agility that the local authority trading company will be set up. So this will now be managing the park going forward. The company will act as the council managing agent for the park. We are at very early stages of setup, but just to flag that for February next year, we as the company will need to draft the business plan for the coming year. I think this will be a business plan that talks about the coming year, but also talks about the next 5 years, because we think there is huge potential for the park that will not be realised overnight. I think we are on a 5-year journey. So I think when we get to the business plan, there will be a bit around the transition, initial setup. There will be a lot more about the vision and how we're going to achieve our objectives over the next 5 years. So the company will be responsible for tenant activities, repairs, park community, security, rent collection, but also for those commercial inquiries around lettings. And one thing that has really pleased me at the start of this journey, there's a lot of interest in the park already. So there's inquiries coming in from large companies, from small companies. It's important we service both, but it's important we're very responsive to those inquiries. Whatever they are, we assess the need, we determine whether we can help. We do that really, really quickly, and very grateful to the existing team. We've got Colin, we've got Tim here today, but that process is working really well with the weekly meeting. Slightly complicated on the park, and I'll come back to this again and again this morning. Battle Lab is obviously, there are other key stakeholders involved in Battle Lab, particularly the Ministry of Defence, MOD. So working through future scenarios for Battle Lab with the MOD is very, very important. I think the company deciding what it's going to do with Battle Lab, not taking the MOD along with it, would be a bad decision. So working with the MOD and other stakeholders, and I'll come back to what we need to do with that. So next slide, and then I think we jump to the slide. So firstly, I want to talk about transition, because we can't achieve future objectives. We can't achieve our vision unless we go through a very effective transition process from how Dorset Council is managing it now to the new company structure. And I think we're probably out to about June next year before we can formally hand over from Dorset Council to Dorset Innovation Park Limited. So if we could go to the next slide. So just talking about some of the administrative stuff that we're working through right now. There are a lot of different documents required. So around land registry, around current relationships with CBRE and Civic Gregory. I'll come back to what they do later. But there's a whole host of documents. And what we need to do is get those documents transferred from the council formally into the company. That sounds quite straightforward, but it's not, because we've got to work through, do we have our own separate Teams client for that document repository? And I think the answer to that is probably yes. So there's a lot of fundamental setup about how to do it before we actually get that list of documents over. We had a board meeting Friday before last. We've certainly identified a list of documents we need, which is quite extensive. So that's the first thing that we're working on at the moment. The shareholders agreement has been drafted. We'll come back to that. And there are 2 services agreements also in the process of being drafted. So the shareholders agreement is the fundamental relationship between the council and the company. Services agreement, there is one that will determine what the company will provide to Dorset Council. There is another one that will determine what the council will provide to the company. So again, in terms of a fundamental company setup, those 3 agreements and others need to be in place. I think the most crucial bullet on this slide for me is the KPIs, key performance indicators. We know what they are from Dorset Council, but we need those to be documented. We need to have very clear instruction from the council as to what the company is there to achieve. And like I say, that's not going to happen overnight. We are looking at a 5-year journey on this. So I think very, very important that we get those documented in a suitable format very early on. And I think that confirmation of the investment, because it would be great, if we get the park into a position where it's generating a lot of income by year 4. That would be great. And hopefully we do it sooner, but I think it could be a longer journey. So very, very fundamental aspect of this setup is getting the KPIs documented, getting that confirmation of investment from Dorset Council for the next 5 years, so that we can achieve the vision that we need to achieve for the park. Part of this is developing a robust financial model, and that's something working with Nick. We're already on the case. Thanks to Tim, we've got a project management plan about how to achieve this, but it's not easy. When you look at how the park operates, you've got retained business rates, you've got rental income, you've got service charges. We do have the current relationship with CBRE, which will be certainly maintained in the foreseeable future. So CBRE are the sort of managing agents in many respects in terms of maintaining the park. So coming up with a financial model is not easy, because there's a lot of different sources of income, there's a lot of different sources of expenditure. The company, the operating budget from the company, will be drawn from retained business rates. So again, that's another layer of complexity. So one of the initial things we're working through at the moment is how we're going to develop this robust financial model. Myself as MD, all I want is a sort of dashboard, corporate dashboard. That's all I want. I don't care how those figures come into that dashboard, but I need to know as MD whether I'm on track. I need to know what degree of loss we might be making at the moment, how that loss is reducing, and when we hit break even and when we're starting to make money. Capital projects will be part of this. We're only going to make that park successful to future tenants if we're doing the right things, making the right investments. All that links back to that robust financial model. I think that's going to be a big piece of work at this Group 5, but that's certainly something we're going to be putting a lot of effort into. Another thing, fundamental company setup, is compliance. We have to be legally compliant. We are going to be a separate company. We've got a separate bank account. We've got a separate accountant. We will need to get separate legal representation. We've got to have a robust conflict of interest policy. We will need to abide by the letter of the law for HR. Where do we get the support for HR? We've got to make sure that all the necessary insurances are in place. So this is all administrative stuff, but is all crucially important, and something we will definitely be working through over the next 6 months. Next slide, please. Another thing that we've already started working on, and I don't like the expression customer journey, but it is very descriptive. And myself and colleagues from the council, we sat in a room a couple of weeks ago, and in terms of that customer journey, it's if a company has interest in the site, how does that process work from start to completion? And it's a very different journey if you're a large company looking to buy a plot of land compared to a small startup company that has a new idea that wants to, create a commercial product from. So another thing we're spending quite a lot of time on at the moment is understanding that customer journey. So who are they speaking to at what stage of the journey? And why that's so important is because, as I said, one of the reasons for setting up the company is so we have greater agility, greater decision making. And I think this is going to be an important aspect because we still will be working with the council on many aspects during that customer journey. And we've got to make sure that we are very efficient. If there's interest, particularly from a large company, we've got to respond as quickly as possible. So mapping that customer journey is very important. My first ever job after uni was a quality assurance manager, and that's a very long time ago. So you can see I colour my hair, but quality assurance in a company, you generally have a company manual. It's a high-level document. This is what the company does. This is how the company does it. This is who the company uses for this service, that service. And I think as a key fundamental compliance building block, what I want to get to, it won't be extensive, but it will be a company manual that reflects how we operate at the moment, how we will be operating going forward. I think that's a good document to have in place. The thing that concerns me a lot as well is the optimal resourcing structure for the company. So currently there are 3 Dorset Council employees involved in the operation of the park. None of them are full-time. There are 3 Dorset Council employees, and I'm looking at 2 underneath the screen on the far wall there. So we need to have a resourcing base that is at the very minimum equitable to what we've currently got in place, up to speed, before we lose any of those people from the council. So this for me is crucially important. You've got 3 people there doing some very good stuff on the park. They've got a lot of tacit knowledge contained within how they do that, which has been built up over a long period of years. So we're currently investing quite a lot of time on drafting person specifications, going back to mapping the core processes. Are we doing it correctly at the moment? How could we do it better? Where do we need additional resources to make that journey better? So a lot of effort going into what is the optimal team? How big is that team going to be? And remember, the bigger the team we've got, the less profit the company will be making. So what we've got to get is a team that works, allows us to achieve the vision for the company, but is not costing the company too much money, so we're not getting to break even in profitability in a shorter time scale. Another thing I'd like to do is, how does the park operate compared to other parks? Do we have any comparators? We haven't got any comparators locally, but there will be comparator parks in other parts of the country. So I'd really like to go and visit some of those just to see how the way we do things compares to the way that they do things. And I think, you know, that would be a really sort of interesting learning experience. So next slide, please. That's something else I'd really like to do in the coming year. Coming back to more fundamental projects than those work streams at the moment. So if we go on to the next slide. One of the issues we've got at the moment is this Battle Lab building. So it's a great building, visually very impressive. I think it was a 4.2 million development. The money for it came from the MOD. The land was provided by Dorset Council. It's a great building. The premise of the building was it would be that sort of innovation ecosystem. So getting a lot of clever people together around Ministry of Defence people. So they could articulate the problems to that community of small companies, startup companies who could develop solutions for UK defence and security issues. It's a great concept. Some days I go into that building and it's thriving. It's very, very busy and it all looks to be fantastic. Other days you go in there and it's practically empty. And so one of the things I will be working on, hopefully with Colin over the next few months, is look at high-level options. I never think Battle Lab, that building, is going to generate money. I don't think it will. I think we could reduce quite a lot of the cost of that Battle Lab building, and that's one of the things we want to explore before Christmas. So can we have a cafe? I don't know. You know, we need to look at the financial feasibility of that. But what I do know from running innovation facilities previously is if you have that cafe culture where people are coming and they're buying a coffee, they're sitting down, eating their sandwiches together, good things happen. Ideas are exchanged and good things happen. So can we look at that? My experience of running an innovation centre previously was I had a very limited number of hot desks, whereas Battle Lab has got quite a large number of hot desks. And I think hot desks have a place, but I think as soon as people have an idea, a proposition they want to take forward, you can't do that in an open plan setting. You want to be behind a closed door when you can come up with your designs. So we're going to be looking at the floor plan. Can we fundamentally change it? The top floor, for those who don't know, is a very great conference facility, brilliant facility. Don't want to change that at all. But we have two other floors, and should we be looking at reducing the amount of hot desks and creating other environments where companies could come along and rent that space and consequently reduce the cost of that facility? The conference facility is great. It would be great for commercial events, and I don't think we've maximised the opportunity around offering that as a commercial event space. I think we need to make it easier for people. We're currently looking at accommodation. Longer term aspirations have a hotel on site. It really needs it, and that would be fantastic. But as a stopgap in the interim, where are all the other sources of accommodation close to the park? So that if anyone is interested in using that as a commercial event space, we can say, look, you need hotel rooms. Here's all the list of local providers. Here's all the list of really good local caterers. So that if you need a lunch, you need a reception in the evening, here's all the providers. We can make it a lot easier. Coming back to a previous bullet I missed, there is a huge amount of investment going from the MOD at the moment to stimulate new innovation. UK defence and security is rapidly changing because of autonomous technology, drone technology. Cyber security is a massive risk to the country. So there's a lot of money going in from the MOD to stimulate innovation, and they call this dual use innovation. So how can they stimulate solutions that would be developed by non-defence companies that could still be used for defence. And I'm not sure Battle Lab is actually getting any of that money to cover the space at the moment. And it's a difficult one because the MOD did pay for the building, but that's another thing we're going to look at. One floor for longer lets, I've covered that. A lot of energy being used by that building. I don't know, you know, can we put more solar panels on the roof? Can we reduce that energy consumption? But it started week 5. I haven't got the answers, but by Christmas, I do want a high-level options paper so that we can start making some decisions. How can we reconfigure? How can we change that space to maybe reduce it to half the current operating costs? But like I say, crucially, keeping the MOD on side during that journey. Slide, please. I do think that the Battle Lab conference facility is a good space for commercial events, but I also think that we need to be driving more of our own events through that facility as well. The more events we can get running through that facility, not only for companies on the park, but companies in the surrounding regional economy, the more we're raising awareness of the park to those companies as a source of growth for future expansion. It's not Dorset Innovation Park versus Weymouth and Portland or other areas in the county. You know, that's the other thing. We're not trying to attract clients there, companies there from other surrounding areas. We're trying to get national companies in there. We're trying to get international companies in there. But the more events we run, the more we raise the profile of the park. Give you a couple of ideas of couple of events I'd love to run in there. So there is a future aspiration to roll out more offshore renewable energy off of Weymouth and Portland. There are big plans in place now starting to take place just off of the Cornish coast, as I'm aware of, just coming up from Plymouth. The problem with offshore renewable energy is it's going to put more power cables on the seabed. And one of the pressing concerns for security for the UK is monitoring and protection of what they call critical underwater infrastructure, power cables, data cables, deep-sea gas pipelines. We have an interesting mix in the southwest, but I think focused around Dorset Innovation Park, of defence and security companies, but also offshore renewable energy developers. Can you get those together in the same room with DESNZ, with a lot of ministerial interest from DESNZ? Can we get everybody in the same room to brainstorm how the UK can create solutions for critical underwater infrastructure, monitoring, protection? That's one event I'd love to do. I'd love to do an event where we get a number of universities, and I'll come back to those in a minute, explaining how they can support advanced manufacturing in the county or in the region. A couple of ideas for events. I'm starting to reach out to sponsors. If we're going to do events, why don't we try and get a company to sponsor a lunch? What I used to do in Plymouth. I think it's possible now. There are a lot of venture capitalist finance organisations looking at defence and security. Can we get them to sponsor some catering? I don't know, but these are all good ideas I think we've got to take forward. CRM is customer relationship management, and there are several lists that do exist from companies who have attended before, but you know, how do we get that together in a sensible listing of contacts we can reach out to? If we are going to do events in Battle Lab that are relevant for companies in the wider region, who do we work with here at Dorset Council? Who do we work with elsewhere across the region to make sure that we're promoting those events to the widest audience we could possibly get? And although social media, it doesn't come naturally to me, believe you me, it really doesn't. We are in an era where this is all too important. So if we're going to do events, you know, how do we maximize our social media presence so that, again, we're establishing the park as a centre for driving that regional innovation ecosystem? Next slide. Higher education. Now, to me, this is crucial. Someone kindly sent me a report that was put together, I think it was around 2020 by an organisation called Cushman Wakefield, and they were saying that the wider innovation part, supported by the innovation ecosystem that is Battle Lab, will only succeed if we get that higher education presence on site. Now, just to explain that a bit more, universities teach, but they do research, and when they do research, they have very expensive facilities. You know, these facilities costing many millions of pounds a time, and if we can make those facilities accessible to companies, it drives their R&D, it drives their new product development. The skills bit of universities is also important, as is the skills element of Yeovil College. And so far, I've visited Bournemouth University. I used to work there many years ago anyway, but visited them. I visited Yeovil College. I was blown away by Yeovil College. They've got some amazing funding going through that facility at the moment. Particularly, they've got this iAero facility, which is linked to Leonardo, which provides rapid prototyping facilities that are free of charge for small companies. So I've also got very positive steer from Southampton, representative from University College London, UCL, attended a roundtable, MP roundtable a couple of weeks ago. A lot of interest, and I've got University of Exeter visiting. So one of the things I do want to do, already started on this, but how do we get them more permanently involved in the park? Can we have, if not a full-time physical presence, a sort of rolling presence of different universities there for a monthly business breakfast event? I don't know, but certainly focusing on getting colleges more involved for the apprenticeships and the skills, and getting universities more involved to provide that research support, I think, is a very important aspect going forward. Next slide. I think we might be getting towards my last slide. Good. The council have already commissioned some really good reports on the future for the park. So a report has been put together around feasibility of the hotel, and possibly with other units for company development as you enter the site on the right-hand side where the football pitch currently is. That's great. Currently, when you drive up to the gatehouse, it really lets the park down. We're currently looking at whether we can give that a makeover just to make it look a bit more presentable in the short term, while we think about where the gatehouse should be positioned longer term. If we take the football pitch away, that's not going to make everybody happy. So do we need to look at alternative recreational facilities on site? Do we need to look at a creche? A creche for people with children wanting to work is fundamental aspect. So what we're working on, we're starting to work on what we want to produce possibly by the end of the first quarter next year, is a vision for future successive phases of the park development, a very visually appealing vision. And I think that vision, we should be sharing that vision. We should be sharing that vision with existing tenants so that they can feed back, I think, other stakeholders. This is where we want to go. This is what phase we're going to develop first. We're thinking about this area of the park for future development, this for this sector, that sector. I think it'd be a very good narrative to have. And I think once we've got that, my job, Dave Happy's job, for us to go out there and attract new companies to the park. If we've got that vision, it shows we know where we're going. It's much easier to attract those companies on park. And also, we've got some interesting infrastructure on the park already. The top floor of a building called Chesil House is currently used as a sort of mock-up series of rooms where people can try out new technologies. That's of great interest to the police force. That's of great interest to security companies on site. Can we think about future infrastructure that we could develop on site? Telecoms companies are after a Faraday cage at the moment. Dave will be able to explain it far more better than I can as to why they need a Faraday cage. But if we've got that future development vision for the park, we then know what infrastructure we need on the park to support that future R&D to develop those future products for the future from the company. But that again is another fundamental project going. Next slide could be the last. Yeah, so in summary, the first 6 to 9 months will require a lot of emphasis on this fundamental company setup and the transition. I think it's quite a complicated transition. It's all, perfectly achievable in that 6 to 9 month time frame, but we've got to do that properly. We've got to get all the documents in place. We've got to have all the alternative services in place so the company is 100% compliant. We've got to have the optimal resourcing structure worked through. So it's very administrative heavy in the first 6 to 9 months. But we can't just focus on that. We've got to, and this is why I'm trying to do 2 things at the same time at the moment. It's really trying to build those necessary relationships, those fundamental relationships, both regionally and nationally, so that we can ensure the future success of Dorset Innovation Park Limited going forward. And there are some very timely opportunities that directly relate back to UK security at the moment. So we can't just stay focused on setting up the company without looking into those opportunities and how we can position the park to take advantage of those opportunities. So conscious I'm probably rambling, I'm going to stop there, but would welcome any questions for that first 6 to 9 months.
Thank you, Kevin. I think David's itching to say something. Are you?
I was just going to add one thing, if I may. I think one of the nicest things from my point of view is Kevin's arrival and the broader team. Where I therefore see us going is absolutely in the right direction. I do think there is a balance between the structures that we need to set up and must set up, as Kevin has clearly articulated, and the immediate response to live central government and other funding and other opportunities that are directly relevant to the future of the park today. And so striking that balance is part of the wider responsibility that we both have. And I think starting any company where your local MP comes along at your launch day is probably about as good as it gets. So I'm very pleased and proud, and I'd like to thank those of you that were able to attend that day, presented us with a great photo opportunity. And in terms of raising wider awareness and interest, I think that's fundamentally important. The other thing I'd add is just regarding events and contacts. Have some direct experience of the park myself, because many years ago, I was a director of one of the companies that was trying to get space on the park. And it's a matter of record that nobody responded to the calls that were being made. So I think we have to accept that we can only get better. And really, I see a real live opportunity today. And I think, Kevin, thank you for picking up so much of the slack. It's been like the arrival of the cavalry over the hill for me. I'm extremely grateful. I'll stop there. Back to you, Chair.
Okay, Richard?
Which big property assets and economic growth. I think, Kevin, you asked, what's the direction from the council? And I think we've been particularly not wanting to get overly involved, in as much we're extremely ambitious for the site. The only one starting point is that 300 jobs. Let's do that. But we want to drive it in the best way, but we want to let you have space to do that, not to be overly council interfering, step back, but to come in when appropriate. We've got the 3 key lines of defence, security, energy security, and agri-tech security. I think the only time there might be tension if you said we've got a large data centre that's going to occupy, they want to come in, they're only going to create 5 jobs. It's going to bring an awful lot of business rates, and we can always sit back, because that's going to sort everything. I think that'd be disappointing if that was, I think that's not innovation. If we can do it somewhere on the other part of the site, on the nuclear site maybe, and still do with the other things, that's a different story. But I think it's about that thing. We're ambitious for you. We don't want to stifle your operational you know, but that the one key thing is that job growth, high paid job, skilled job, working in university. You're saying all the right things, so I'm sure.
Thank you.
I'll respond to that because I think there's a lot of wisdom there, and thank you for the question. What's in the back of my head? By having obviously strong links to the area myself, and having seen the park over some years, I'm delighted to hear that you're ambitious for us. I'm delighted to hear that the jobs is the principal focus. That gives us the clarity that we need. I would also be disappointed, to take your point directly on data centers, if that's all we did. If this is helpful, I see technology evolving in such a way that large data center footprints will be less desirable in the future. Part of that comes down to the need to put more data centers or information closer to the edge of networks, and that itself is necessary to reduce latency for things like self-driving cars and all the wonderful tech that will come into the future. So I believe I'm correct in saying that it's Microsoft that's been quietly dropping options for putting in additional data centers at scale. So whilst I think they're important, I think in some recent discussions we've had with the government, we've been looking at innovative things like using lower energy chips, things that will be more appropriate and are more energy efficient. So green energy is an important thing. How we factor in those things and get those linkages together, I think is really, really important, Richard. And I take your point on board. Thank you for the support, Chair.
Shane, Councillor Butler. Yeah, I've got 3 questions. You mentioned about your aspiration for obviously taking the park into profit. Talked about you need to know a break-even point. Guess what the question's coming. I appreciate you're probably not going to be able to answer it, but do you have any understanding of what your aspiration would be to meet that break-even point for moving the park into profit? You give some sort of idea of a time frame in which you would hope to achieve that.
So this stage, I think it's year 4. I would hope it's by year 3.
Sorry.
At this stage, I'm leaning more towards year 4. I think 4 years away, I think we'd be making profit.
You say year 4?
Year 4. I'm hoping it could be year 3. There are a couple of projects at the moment. There is one development certainly underway that if that lands, jobs wise, Nick, we're looking at about 50 new jobs.
I think probably in that kind of region, yeah, without giving too much away.
So if that were to happen, that new building, once the rental income, the rateable value of that building is assessed, that would be a significant boost towards that year 4 ultimate target. So I'm hoping it could be a lot sooner. I think year 4 would be the safe assumption at this stage.
Thank you. So just I haven't visited the site. I fully understand your issues around the number of hot desks. I just want to get an understanding of the way that building was designed and built out. Was that a number of hot desks within that building a requirement for the MOD at the time for the exercises that they were running within that building? Obviously, we're going to need to speak to the MOD about the configuration of that building so it still works for them afterwards if we were to implement changes within there.
I don't know. I have got a couple of reports on the Battle Lab that I do need to read to work that through. So I don't know. I can't answer that in terms of how the building was initially configured and why it was configured the way it was. I do have ongoing meetings with Stuart Keegan. So Stuart Keegan's a senior officer on site from the MOD. I am making sure that any solution to reduce the cost of that building is definitely with their agreement, with their buy-in. I think, you know, as it stands at the moment, like I say, if we assume half of the top floor is a really good conference facility, we don't want to change. The other section of that top floor is quite a large hot desk area with some separate offices as well. Maybe we don't change those, but if we go onto the second floor down, again, there's a very large number of hot desk facilities there. Is that the floor that we could start to partition up or look at other people coming in, taking blocks of hot desks together and start to charge more rental income for those? I don't know at the start of week 5. I think, you know, when we get to the options paper by the end of the year, we will have some different options. They will be worked up with the MOD. And yeah, that's probably when I can answer your question properly.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Last one. Sorry.
Oh, sure.
No problem.
I was going to simply add that in the forward plan, which I agree the leader said earlier is not yet fully developed, but in the forward plan at the February meeting of this committee, that's when Dave and Kevin will be bringing forward that business plan that Kevin referred to for the year ahead. So there's a bit of an evolution here from first ideas and thoughts at week 5 to some discussion papers nearer Christmas to the first forward-looking annual business plan, which I agree with Kevin's earlier comment. It's going to be a foundational business plan. We need to see the business plan for the year ahead. But it also needs to be a business plan that says, look, this is what years 2, 3 and 4 look like, so that we're agreeing, if you like, 1 year's plan in the context of a forward-looking plan for the future. So it's going to be a case of working through those stages, but seeing that business plan in February at this meeting here is going to be a very critical milestone on that path.
Yeah, I appreciate this is a moving feast and we're not there yet and the questions are coming early, but it gives you an idea of where my thinking is and what I would hope to see in those future documents here. So just want to refer back to our visit, and I visited it before, the in terms of the battle lab, but we'll call it the testing shed, one of the better description. I'm not sure what we actually call it. And the heating requirements for that building. I'm not quite sure how we ended up in the position of heating the building the way we did. I appreciate the fact there's something you're looking at in terms of solar power energy, because obviously at the moment the facility doesn't accord with Dorset Council's corporate plan regarding its climate change and what have you. I was quite astounded when I visited it the first time, which was a couple of years ago, the heating that was in there, how it was being generated. And I'm not sure if I've seen the answer to this, but who actually pays for that, the utility bills for that establishment? Is it Dorset Council? Is it the MOD? Or
I believe it's us, the council.
It's the council.
so it does need to change and pretty rapidly then.
Well, we also have to be aware that we are setting up a company to run the site. So
Yeah. I just wanted to get a clarification around that. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Clifford.
Yeah, thank you. I've got 2 or 3 points to make and then a question. First off, thanks for the work. It's really disappointing that we're starting up a business plan that covers administration. That leads me to, you talk about benchmarking. Benchmarking is pretty simple. Go anywhere around the country, you'll find enterprise zones such as the Innovation Park make money. Not in Dorset, we lose money. The fact we hit break even in year 3, possibly year 4, means that we've lost half our opportunity through the life of the zone to retain business rates. And that shows the shocking, shambolic lack of strategic leadership this place has had over the past decade. My question to you is, you talk about staff members. For me, it's much more about budget. So at what stage will you be coming back with a budget? Because I want you, once the park is running successfully and orderly, the whole emphasis is going to be on winning work and bringing companies in. That will not necessarily be through staff, but it'll be through all kinds of lobbying, consultancies, spending quite a lot of money, being very visible. So for me, it's not just about numbers of staff that you will have as your core, but it's more about what kind of budget you believe you'll need in order to be successful.
Absolutely, Simon. Your first 3 points completely taken on the chin. I get that. I think, you know, this is why the company has been set up to now start to do things differently. The resourcing structure that was proposed, there was a consultancy called Activist who put together a proposal for the new company to manage the park. They were proposing a staffing base of 5 posts, including myself. So coming back to February with a plan with the costing of that resourcing base, absolutely, completely, that will be a fundamental part of it. Like I say, it's got to be an optimized resourcing base. It goes back to the core processes and the efficiencies we're trying to achieve. What posts do we actually need to make it better than it is at the moment? How many posts do we need, keeping those to a minimum? So that will be a fundamental component that I'll bring back in February. Your other point is very well made as well. Just moving up from Plymouth as I have done, I've spent the last 7 years working in Plymouth. Now Plymouth has recently, it's been announced it's going to land a very significant percentage of 250 million out of the Strategic Defence Review. That took me the last 7 years to get Plymouth to that position. And it took a lot of lobbying in Westminster. It took a lot of lobbying elsewhere in the country. And now completely. So the plan I will come back with will have a line in there for those sort of activities to raise the promotion, to raise the profile of the park nationally, politically, and also with key industry sectors. So, no, hearing you completely, and I will have that detail for you in February.
I'd add a few things as well, Councillor Clifford, if it's of any use. I can't measure Kevin's performance if I haven't seen a budget. So I absolutely demand a budget. I don't have to worry because I know I'm going to get one. But equally, part of my role is to assist in giving you the support that you need to put something prudent and sensible together. I think your point on lobbying and wider activities is well made. I can't comment on the previous status of the park because it wasn't under our stewardship at that point, and I intend for it to be different under my leadership as chairman going forwards. That's a commitment that I make right now and publicly to all of you. It's important to me to see this succeed, quite independently of anything else. In terms of events and putting things together, one of the things that we are already looking at is based on something that I did during the course of last year, and it's worth sharing with the council what happened. So I happen to chair a group that looks after cybersecurity and feeds into the Department of Innovation, Science and Technology. Under my role as pro bono chair of that group, I managed to bring down the Treasury, the Home Office, our friends from the Department of Agriculture, DCIT, what was becoming DCMS, becoming DCIT, the Ministry of Defence, and I think it was part of the Treasury NISTA team, so the people that were looking at infrastructure development. They themselves were as astounded as we were at the potential of the park. We gave them some demonstrations. We let them see some of the capabilities that we've got. My problem is going to potentially be not just putting a budget around that. I think that's doable. It's getting them to come. It's raising the profile of the park so that we have that support and not stopping at the borders with Hampshire, Wiltshire or anywhere else. As Kevin rightly said, the future of this could well be decided in San Diego rather than Scunthorpe. We have to have a broader horizon here. The companies that we're dealing with are international in scope and scale. And if we can't even get them to come down and get involved with us, then we have a bigger problem. So your comments are well taken and certainly heard loud and clear by me, sir. Thank you. Chair.
Thank you. Any more questions? I've got a few, not really questions. I guess that there's comments on the presentation. So watch this space, I think, for a lot of stuff, which is the next meeting in February. I guess one question is, if you think you need to meet sooner, please let us know. It's obviously 3 months away, and we need to make sure we don't miss things because of that. In terms of using the conference centre, so Great Southwest was mentioned briefly. There is a board meeting penciled in for the 4th of December in Dorset for GSW, venue still TBC. So I would suggest maybe you contact maybe through Jan, Ahmed and Carl.
Yes. Yeah, I can reach.
It's still saying as TBC, so that'll be a perfect location.
Yeah, I'll reach out.
We have been running Pathway to Prosperity. I'm assuming we're going to have a fourth installation of that.
Indeed.
Maybe we should move it from the Sailing Academy to there. Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that would work very well.
I think it would work very well, and the sound would be a lot better. And of course, one of your directors is also involved with Green Energy Supercluster, which is Claire Pearce, obviously. So that ties in quite well. And I guess caterers, yes, there's lots of them and really good ones around. So I'm sure we can help there. And education. So you mentioned quite a few August institutions there, but we also really need to include Coastland College, which is our Weymouth and Kingston Woolward engagement, and also local sixth forms. We need to grow the schools involved. I know we had an event last year, this year actually, earlier this year, where we had some school kids there at the Sub-Exeter hacking thingy. Should be doing more of that if possible. If we could just show kids what's possible. And
Strongly in
excited.
favour. Yeah, strongly in favour. For my sins, I married a primary school teacher. I did a qualification myself in further and adult education. So I also sponsor through my own company some years individuals at Exeter University who are non-technical people and ideally similar to myself, had a scholarship or had a chance. The idea was to give them a break and to see whether we could make that possible. So in the course of the last 4 years, that's included 2 ladies, one who lives in Bridport or near Bridport, one of whom is trying to move into Dorset, which is even better. One of the things that they fed back to me that would assist for a wider strategy is we can do this, but there are fundamental problems relating to affordability and availability of housing. And one idea that I was playing with was, might it be possible for the Ministry of Defence to have quarters or additional quarters around and about that were affordable? Because we can have all the ambition in the world to get high paid jobs, but if the people can't afford to come and stay, then we're going to have a bigger problem. So I don't know yet the answer to that, but I want to put it on the table so that we can think about it. It may assist in broader council policy formulation outside of our remit. But certainly, if we know that we have the security of accommodation for people, that would be super helpful. And thank you.
I completely agree with my chairman on that point. And I think if we look at the impact of offshore renewable energy development, and they will start putting the turbines in, is probably at least 5 years away. That actually requires that sector thinking about its skilled workforce now. And I've had some very positive conversations in the last few weeks. People in the council, people outside the council are looking at the skills agenda. But my firm belief is schools outreach. You've got to be saying to probably school children as young as 13, 14, that if you want a high paid job in this part of the world, these ones may well happen. And it's going to be around offshore wind, it's going to be around defence and security. But unless we've got that fundamental schools outreach, raising their expectations, raising their aspirations, then it's difficult to get those other elements of further education, higher education engaged. And it is a difficult one, as you say, Chair, that with high house prices, you do need a very substantive wage to afford to live here. But it's an issue we've got to crunch collectively. It's not something that we as Dorset Innovation Park Limited can do on our own. It's a fundamental building block to our success, but we will need to work with others in the region to actually resolve this issue.
Thank you. I think we can draw this item to a close.
Thank you.
Okay. So this is the final substantial item on the agenda, which is number 9, which is the shareholder agreement. There is an exempt appendix. If anybody wants to desperately talk about the content of the exempt appendix, we'll have to go into exempt business. So if we can avoid that, I don't want to stop you, but if we can avoid that, if possible, that's probably for the best. And then we will go into exempt if necessary. So if you think you're going to say something that maybe you shouldn't, we'll check with Grace here on my left first. And as Grace has pointed out, the shareholder agreement, the delegation has been given to Mr. Britton to actually carry this forward on the council's behalf. So this we're not here today to approve it or anything. It's just to note the shareholder agreement. So who's leading on this? Yeah,
I think it's a relatively straightforward item, as you say, Leader. It's principally about delegation to myself to, in consultation with others, to conclude the shareholder agreement. So rather than talk in any detail, I would suggest you take the report as read.
Okay, this could be very quick then. Anybody got any questions? The officers in the room want to comment? No? Simon, not saying anything? In which case, we can just note it. And thank you for your work so far. So we'll move on to the next one, which is urgent items. There aren't any exempt business we don't need to do. And then that's it. We're closed. Thank you. Catherine, can you stop?
Sorry, we just end the live stream, please.